Where specifically are they at?
Secretary's a caller. They're advising her to stay safe. There are reported injuries. Oceania is asking for help.
Tom 22, right?
Clear the air for emergency traffic call. 1253.
You're right. Command 80 to Bellcrest Road. You got an update for incoming units?
Top 2288 at the school. Suspect is gone in a red vehicle. I'll get more information.
All units be advised, suspect left the school in a red vehicle. Information to follow. Signal 88 at Millard South High School at this time.
We need a medic at the front office. Got a adult male down with an injury to the head. Pierce?
Sir, medic needed in the front office.
Down 22, you can cancel the help 88.
Cancel the help at Millard South High School, 14905 Q Street. Cancel help an officer at Millard South High School, 14905 Q Street. Cancel help an officer at Millard South High School, 14905 Q Street.
See if we can get more information on the vehicle.
22.
Tom 10, are we sure this party has left the property, or are they still on school grounds?
Tom 22.
Down 22, suspect is gone. His name, Red Honda Accord 2-door. We'll be changing location to his address to search for it.
What's that address?
15507. Looks like Adams Street, number 203. The address again? 15507 Adams, apartment 203. Yes, it's Adams Plaza.
Can I repeat it? We got other units listening in. Repeat it again.
15507 Adams, number 203. I am with Tom. I'm with Tom 24. Command 20 is behind us. And apparently there's a grade school nearby. If you want to give them a Anderson Middle School, give them a call.
I need an instant.
So that could be hitting Adams from 156 and Q.
Sir, stand by north of command 4. Command 2.
Command 214.
Need an incident command. We have a suspect that left the school. Possible address given. Name given. Vehicle description given.
What's a 100 block on him?
6400 South.
83, I'll be en route to the Adams address.
King 90's en route. Well, go ahead and broadcast the suspect vehicle information and suspect description.
Active shooter. Reports of an active shooter. Active shooter.
Mass casualty incidents.
Active shooter. Reports of an active shooter.
Mass casualty incidents.
Victoria, Vicky, Ann Casper, was 58 years old when she lost her life. She was born on January 6, 1952, and was just 1 day shy of celebrating her 59th birthday. Dr. Caspar will always be remembered for her love of teaching and love for children. She was known to send personal emails and notes to various students and compliment them on writing assignments or other accomplishments. In the early 1970s, she worked at Sears when she would periodically bump into a handsome young man in the lunchroom. This young man was Ronald, and he worked in the parts department. It was love at first sight, and the two eventually married in 1974. She started her teaching career at Bellevue Public Schools, and the two quickly started a family. Their first child was a healthy boy who they named Ron, after his father. Their second child, a daughter, was born with disfiguring congenital disabilities and required a feeding tube. Unfortunately, little Cynthia Ann passed away at only 3 months old. Vicky and Ronald would spend time contemplating if they even wanted to try to have any more children. The sense of loss that they felt from the death of Cynthia was enough to change anyone's mind. There was no way they could go through that pain and suffering again. Thankfully, the two did decide to have another child, and this time it was a boy who they named John. John was a happy and healthy baby. They even went on to have another child, a son who they named Jim. Jim was also a happy and healthy baby. Vicky decided she would put her career on hold until her boys were old enough to attend school themselves. She wanted to stay home with them. She also decided to start a daycare since she was going to be home anyway. She might as well help others who needed childcare. That is just who Vicky was. She was thoughtful, caring, and always willing to help. She also donated to the food bank and homeless shelter. After her boys were in school, she was hired at Millard schools in 1988. In 1998, she was promoted to an assistant principal. Vicky had earned master's and doctoral degrees from the University of Nebraska at Omaha and was described as an all-around wonderful woman. Ronald stated after her death that Vicky would have forgiven the student that shot her in a heartbeat. Vicky didn't leave her job at the school at the end of the day, and would spend her nights going to different sporting events and drama plays to support her students. Her husband said that Vicky was his heaven on earth, and to say she will be greatly missed would be a massive understatement.
I mean, you can see from the memorial that there's a lot of people around, and there's a lot of people that cared, and there's a lot of people that showed up today to show their support for Mrs. Casper and our school.
We care.
Millard South High School is known as the Millard South Patriots. Established in 1970 at Millard High School, the school hosts grades 9 through 12 and has about 134 staff members and just over 2,500 students. The school's colors are red, white, and blue, and it is known to be very successful in different sports, holding multiple state championships for boys and girls basketball, baseball, softball, and many, many others. Millard South High School is one of 4 schools in the Millard School District. Brandon grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and spent his years growing up with his mom. He went to Lincoln public schools from kindergarten until the first part of his senior year. In the fall of 2010, he transferred from Lincoln Southwest High School to Millard South High School in Omaha, and began living with his dad. There was some sort of incident that happened in either 2009 or 2010 that resulted in Brandon having to perform community service. Because he was a juvenile at the time, the record was sealed, and whenever this incident was brought up around the family, things would get very tense, and the topic was immediately changed. It was not to be talked about between Brandon's family and friends. It was this incident that caused the move from Lincoln, Nebraska to Omaha to live with his dad. Could this unknown incident have something to do with the motive behind the Millard South High School shooting? We may never know. Brandon had no known history of mental illness, nor did he ever show any aggression or signs of depression. He was your typical teenage boy who had dreams of being a police officer, just like his dad. His friends said he was fun, outgoing, and energetic. A good time was always had whenever Brandon was around. He was a class clown in school, but his classmates said that Brandon was so charming he could get away with just about anything. In addition to being a class clown, he was also a daredevil, and always the first to try something new. He did have a few issues at school, but nothing that would stand out as unordinary. He had a few problems with tardiness, and it was reported that he had gotten into a few fights. However, we don't know if he had started these fights, though, or if he was just sticking up for himself, or a friend. Like any other teenage boy, he had trouble following his mom's rules on occasion, and had even more difficulty transitioning to his father's home and rules. His father was a lot more strict than his mom. Whether it was from his dad's Navy background, or from being a police officer, his father enforced more rules than his mom did. Brandon also didn't think it was fair that his father would let him play certain video games that his mom let him play. While this may not have seemed reasonable to Brandon, it certainly doesn't seem like it would be a reason for him to wreak havoc at his school. Brandon wrote about hating Omaha and his school in his last post on social media. This did nothing but muddy the waters even more for his friends and family, as Brandon never seemed unhappy with Omaha or his school. He appeared to be a happy young man who was always having fun. Whether the suspension from school may have been the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back or not will remain forever unknown. This shooting is an example that things do not always appear as they seem. Brandon seemed to be a happy kid, with a few issues here and there, but didn't seem depressed, and he didn't have any known mental health issues. There are some similarities between this case and other cases that we have covered on this podcast. For instance, many of the shooters have had parents or family members involved in the military or law enforcement. The assailants also have had dreams of being in law enforcement. In this case, it is both. Brandon's father was in the Navy before his discharge and becoming a detective for the Omaha police force. Also, as mentioned earlier, Brandon had dreams of following in his father's footsteps and becoming a police officer. Though we will never know if this tragedy could have been prevented, we still caution you to remember to check in on your friends and loved ones. You never know what demons they may be facing in their head. If you see something, say something. You'll never know how many lives you may be saving. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Active Shooter, the podcast. Remember, if you see something, say something. There's no telling how many lives you may be saving.
A huge thank you to Darren Curtis, who composed some of the music used in this episode. Check him out at darrencurtismusic.com. DARRENCURTIS music.com.
Active shooter. Reports of an active shooter.
Active shooter mass casualty incidents.
Make sure to check us out on social media. We have a discussion group on Facebook. Just search for Active Shooter, the podcast discussion group. You can also find us on Instagram at Active the Podcast and Twitter at Podcast Active. For just $1 a month, you can get access to ad-free episodes, early release episodes when available, and a shout-out on the show. Just go to patreon.com/Active the Podcast. Thank you, and be safe.